My name is Barrett Young, and this is the Art of Succession podcast. Welcome to the end of Season 1. I want to thank everyone who's been along for the journey so far. I decided when I started this show that I wanted to do this show in seasons, and so the first 6 months, the first 11 episodes comprise Season 1, and this is going to be the end of Season 1 clip show. This is going to be a chance for me to just talk about the podcast so far, share some of my favorite moments from this season, and then give you a sneak peek into Season 2. Right now, my goal is to launch Season 2 in January, but I'll get more into that at the end of the show. I want to thank you for just listening to the show, watching the show, all the feedback that I've received. I want to thank my guests for being on the show. Stalking Season 1 with episodes was a lot easier than I expected. I'm not new to podcasting. I used to have podcasts about 8 years ago. I was running 3 podcasts concurrently with 3 different friends, and I would call those two buddies and a beer kind of podcasts, where we would just talk about whatever topics were on our mind. Those podcasts were audio podcasts, though, and they were not guest interview podcasts. I was always stuck on the concept of guest interview podcasts because I didn't know who I would interview. I didn't know what kind of value an audience would be interested in getting from guests. Back in last winter, as I was contemplating our YouTube channel and the work that we've been doing at GWCPAs around succession planning and advising, moving our focus more blatantly into that based off of our expertise, the idea came to me that I should interview people who've bought businesses. That was the initial impetus for this show, and it clicked for me, and I knew my audience, and I knew the guests that I would have on, and I immediately knew the value that I wanted to bring to those guests. And so that was a big piece that just fell into place for the Art of Succession that I didn't have on any of those prior podcasts. It was a learning experience. Video podcasts are new to me, not having been in the game for the past 8 years. They were just kind of getting off the ground in 2013, 14, 15 when I was last podcasting. So there was a lot of learning experiences, and my guests have been great. I guess the world is ready for video podcasts, and I haven't had a guest turn me down yet. That being said, I am interested in hearing your thoughts as a regular listener to the show. Do you watch us on YouTube more often, or are you listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? The show is distributed audio. If you were not aware of that, it is available via Transistor FM and sent to all the platforms. And again, as I talk about Season 2, there'll be a change in Season 2 that you can look forward to at the end of this episode. Personally, I've been watching more video podcasts. I also subscribe to YouTube Premium, and that means that I can put my phone in my pocket while I'm mowing the lawn or doing dishes and continue to listen to videos, just the audio form. I do like the video format because I feel like I have a better connection with the host of a podcast when I can see them. But I'm interested in your thoughts on that. And I've been listening to podcasts for over 20 years. It feels maybe 20 years. And so 10, 15 years of audio only. Definitely felt like I was friends with everybody. The podcasts that I'd listened to, I felt like I was invited into their lives. But hopefully video gives you more of a connection to the voice behind the microphone. And that's really my desire for a video podcast. Conducting interviews, I need to see the person that I'm talking to. Even 10 years ago, I used to run one of our podcasts over GoToMeeting before Zoom came along and blew up the scene. And me and my buddy would record our audio separate tracks on devices in our own house, and then he would upload it to Dropbox and I would put them together. But it's important to me to see eye to eye with the person that I'm talking to. And so video is always going to be a part of how I conduct the interviews, and it just makes sense, I feel, to invite the audience into that experience as well with video podcasts. What I was not prepared for is some of the issues that I would have running a video podcast. You don't know it because my video editors are so awesome. But that first episode that I recorded with Jason, I had something going on in my Chrome browser, and the video would stop every 4.5 minutes. My video would stop and drop me from the call. And I would log back in. I'm using Riverside. This is not a fault of Riverside. This is a fault of my Chrome browser and its limited virtual memory. But I would log back into Riverside, and Jason just got used to finish the thought that he was in the middle of, and then we would pick back up after I logged in. I was not expecting that. That was my first video that I recorded, and I wanted to cry and give everything up. I was so frustrated that this is what I had committed to. But again, kudos to my video editors. They took I think I gave them 11 video files for my side of that conversation, and they were able to put it together. And it's one of our most watched episodes of the show. I was not prepared, and this is something I'm still struggling with, booking guests, how difficult it is to filter through all of the noise. There are a lot of booking agents out there that will just book their client for you without any concern about the type of podcast that I'm running. They don't understand the concept of, did they buy the business from somebody else? That seems to go over their head. So lots of noise with booking agents. I think I've canceled probably almost as many podcasts as I've scheduled and run, just because I can't get an email address for the actual person that I'm going to be talking to so that I can communicate with them directly leading up to the recording. And if I don't have an email address and if I don't have contact information for the person I'm interviewing, I refuse to interview them, because I want to do the preparation before we press record, so that I'm going into the interview with a little bit of knowledge about the person, so that I'm not just going to surprise you guys with pop-up spammer trying to get on the show. That said, I am active in a couple Facebook groups, and that is where I've found a number of the guests. As you can probably tell, half the guests that I've had on the show so far have been peers or introductions through peers within the CPA space, and those have been great. I've loved digging into the details on some of these other accounting firms and how they came about to acquire them. That's been really interesting. Mike and Tatiana, the chiropractors from episode 4, they were also introduced to me by a client and friend of mine who works with them through Honey Badger. So that's really been great. But that leaves about 4 or 5 of my guests. 5? I think 5 of my guests out of the past 11 that have been brand new introductions. And I've really just enjoyed digging into those businesses and getting to know more about those guests.
I know in my heart that I have this business because of my dad and my grandpa. And I wouldn't have it if it weren't for them. I love that it's my grandpa's legacy. My grandpa was a really special person, and I love that I get to do this here with his name.
Again, the autonomy that he gave me to allow me to see my vision and start building what I wanted, even while I was in here running it, working with him.
As long as his bills were getting paid, and he checked the social boxes, like he had the friends through the business, he was good. I didn't realize that was okay for him, but it wasn't okay for me.
I just love how an interview allows me to get a guest to talk about themselves and talk about what excites them about their business. And some of these interviews have gone really deep really quickly. Thinking specifically about Lisa's episode, just sharing that heartbreaking story of buying their dream job and then watching it crumble around them. Just due to a lot of issues within the acquisition and having to close that down. But the resilience that Lisa had, and she was actually coaching me on the call. That episode is probably the closest I've come to tearing up on the show so far. That's just powerful that she would be so willing to share that with a stranger. A couple others that were like that for me. Alana Thomas was a difficult and interesting interview. And then Amber Kendrick also just having to kick her own dad out of the company because he was no longer doing what was best for Pete's Auto Parts. Those are powerful interviews, and I've really appreciated those moments, experiencing them as the interviewer and then being able to share them with you as the guests as well. But the show hasn't been all heartbreak. There have been some amazing stories too. Specifically, Curtis, the opportunity to work with your grandfather in the same profession. I cannot wrap my head around how cool that would be. My own grandfather died when I was 18 years old in boot camp, and he had Parkinson's most of the end of his life. And so I was a stupid teenager that wasn't comfortable around nursing homes for about the last 10 years of his life. And so I didn't have a relationship with my grandparents for various reasons. But just to be able to work with your grandfather for 15 years in the business, regardless of all the conflict that comes up between two partners butting heads with visions of a company, just the experience, and I could hear it in Curtis's voice, just the appreciation that he had for Pops, just being able to learn from him in this profession that they both love and gain an understanding for why he's made the decisions that he's made. That was very powerful. Thinking of also Jim Morrow taking the business under his wing while his dad's going through chemo. That's the power of family business, especially. Though I would say that a number of us that are in partnerships, not with family, we would still jump through hoops and pull more than our fair share of the weight if necessary to alleviate our partner's suffering in any bit that we could. But just to hear that story of Jim going back and forth to chemo treatments and taking care of his dad while also trying to take care of customers. There's just something there that is powerful, and it's what I love about small business. Another awesome story, we heard Mike's story with his dad, Ross, how he doesn't call him dad at work, he calls him Ross, but just how rewarding that is to have that kind of relationship where it's not a conflict at the outset, or it's not a conflict every single day of parent and child warring in different directions, parent and child pulling in different directions in order to get what they want out of the business. It takes a special kind of leader to recognize when your offspring or somebody that you've mentored is coming up in the company and has skills that you don't have and has drive that you don't have, a vision for the future that maybe you used to have and no longer have. I really admire that in some of the leaders that I've talked to on this show, just the relationships that they've had in their businesses, really envious of that, and just really want to model that within GWCPA between me and my partner Sam for the incoming next level of leadership, next group of leaders that come in this company. I want to know what some of your best moments have been. I do want to share some clips and then just talk about them briefly, but I want to know who's been your favorite interview, what moments stand out to you, and also what was your first exposure to the Art of Succession podcast? Who was your first interview? And did you go back and listen to any others? Certainly we're early enough in the podcast. Are you a binger? When I find a new show and I find that I'm, maybe less than 100 episodes into the show, I'll go back to season 1 and I'll start listening to the whole thing. I hope maybe by now I've gotten one of those on the Art of Succession. So if that's you, go ahead and leave me a shout out and let me know. And just know that I appreciate every listen, whether it's every episode, whether it's every other episode. It means a lot to me that you find value in this show and you've subscribed and want to hear about the stories that these business owners are sharing. One of the changes I made mid-season, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, when I started the show, I was very clear that I wanted to hear from people who've acquired their business from somebody else. But as you saw there towards the end of season 1, I did start to introduce, starting with Lisa, people who have closed or sold their business. So we've heard from Lisa, we heard from Alana, we've heard from Jerem, who was not an acquirer of the business. He was brought in as a partner in order to rescue the business. And then most recently, we've heard from Jillian Sidoti, who sold her law firm and is now moved on from that business that she built. I added these with caution. Certainly, I want to make sure that I'm bringing my audience the most value. And I think that a lot of that value is found in the tales of the people who've purchased those businesses and all of the pitfalls and surprises and just victories that they've had in that new business. But also, I am interested in giving us a perspective as the acquirers, giving us a perspective into the minds of the seller. Perhaps you are in a family business right now, or you are in the succession journey as I am myself, and you have not taken over 100% yet, and you're trying to understand what's going on in the mind of the seller. Why are things not moving faster? Why are they making some of the decisions that they're making? That's kind of been my intention in interviewing the sellers of businesses, opening that up to future guests as well. But I want to know if that resonates with you as a listener to the Art of Succession. Is that something that you are interested in? I appreciate hearing from sellers as well, because I will be a seller someday as well. You, most likely, if your business continues. So that was an easy yes for me to bring those in. I will say I have had a lot of other inquiries, a lot through these booking agents, but then just other peers within the space that have been interested in being interviewed that are not acquirers of their business, not sellers of their business, but they work within the mergers and acquisitions, they work within the succession planning space. I have held off on bringing those in. As a professional in that space, I know there can be value to be heard from somebody in that space, but I also know it's different if you're going through it than if you work with people that are going through it. Now, that's not a bad thing. I think that they have a lot of value that they can add, but I don't want this to become mostly just about marketing their services to my audience. Providing value, certainly, but I just haven't figured out how to provide value in a way without diluting the core tenet of the Art of Succession podcast, which is business owners who are purchasing their business from somebody else. So let me know your thoughts on that as well. That's not going to be in season 2. but possibly in a future season, I might entertain that. Another thing that I've considered is just doing those as bonus episodes or just extra content on the YouTube channel. We certainly have an attorney that we work with closely with all of our clients. And so I've talked to her about doing interviews focused on specifics around succession planning. So that is something that we are keeping in mind. But I haven't decided yet if I'm going to bring that into the Art of Succession as formal guest interviews yet. So let me know your thoughts on that. Another decision I've made in discussions with my partner and then just viewing the YouTube landscape out there. Our firm specializes in succession planning for multi-generational businesses, and so does the Art of Succession podcast. Once you get into this space, you find out that there's a lot of other tangential content out there that's not directly related to succession planning. So the easiest one is exit planning. So those are business owners that just are ready to retire and they want to get out. A lot of exit planning is focused on consolidations, focused on selling to an outside entity, an outside buyer, not directly succession within the company, an employee or a descendant within the company. It is more about this larger competitor of mine is swallowing up a lot of our types of businesses. So that's exit planning. That's distinct in our minds from succession planning. Obviously, Jillian Sidoti, that would have fallen under exit planning. One thing I've avoided with the Art of Succession, and if I can just be open for a minute here, as I talk to people who have sold their businesses, I'm going to be very cautious about business owners that have sold their businesses to somebody other than another small business. So so-called mergers and acquisitions, equity, private equity, buyers. There's a lot of that in our space right now. And I know that there's a lot of that interest, and it's easy to gain views if you talk about that on YouTube. The reason this is called the Art of Succession and not the Science of Succession or the Art of the Deal or the mechanics of the deal or anything like that is because as a small business owner and as a small business owner that works with small business owners, our businesses have soul. Our businesses have a purpose that is closely tied to who we are as owners, the values that we bring to our work every single day, and the values that drive what we do for our clients. And soapbox here, private equity in the accounting space, I think, is a really bad idea. It's an easy exit for a firm owner that has not done the work necessary to make sure that there's a business there of value that conveys to another generation. And I think that it's debilitating for professionals who work in those companies, who maybe have worked in those businesses for 5 to 7, 10 years, just to find out that they're being acquired and rolled up into a regional firm, or that their founder, that their boss is taking private equity money and everything's about to become a lot more corporate and focused on the bottom line. I would not have stayed at a firm like that in my career. I specifically became a CPA, and I've moved CPA firms in the past because of the path to ownership. And private equity, mergers and acquisitions, roll-ups completely destroy the path to ownership in those companies. And so that's not what this show's about. That's not the kind of guests that I'm interested in hearing from. I certainly would want to get into their minds about why they made that decision, but that's not something that I want to champion with this show, and it's not something we champion with our YouTube channel. Similarly, in the YouTube space, there's a lot of emphasis or a lot of focus on employees that go out and they get private equity money, or they get search funds behind them, and they go out and they buy these boring businesses, and they don't step into the role of operator within those businesses. There's a lot of emphasis on you just install an operator and you get to collect the dividends as an owner. That's fine. A lot of people are interested in that. Again, that goes against the ethos that we have at GWCPA and the Art of Succession as well. Small business ownership is an art. It's not a science. We're dealing with real people. We're dealing with real employees, and we're dealing with real concerns that they have. I mean, certainly there's nothing, I think, illegal about what they're doing, obviously. And if your goal is to buy a company and step away from it, I understand that. I was there 15 years ago. That's what I did with my first company that I started. Before I came here to work at GWCPA, I was all about setting up the systems and walking away, making passive income, 4-hour work week, all that. And at 32 years old, I was burned out and retired. And so I think a lot of those people, I don't wish them ill, but I think a lot of them will find out that it's not everything that they've blown it up to be in their heads. I find a lot of satisfaction in the work that I do, both as a professional and as a business owner. So I love being a CPA. I love being a business owner of a CPA firm even more. And I think that work is satisfying. I think that just personal talk here, I think that I was made in the image of my Creator, and my Creator is a God who works, and I am made in that image. And work is difficult. Work is unbelievably difficult, but it is satisfying. And I think that it's one of the ways that we find a lot of just fulfillment in life. And it's not something that we should walk away from. It's something that we should engage in each and every day. I've really appreciated that about my guests, and I hope you hear that in the Art of Succession, that the toughest moments we go through as business owners, they rip our hearts out, they stomp on them, but we come out on the other end and we say, I'm a better person because of what I went through. I am a better business owner, and I can sympathize with my employees because XYZ happened in my career. I can understand my customers and my customers' points of view, their perspectives, because I'm also in the fight on a daily basis. My focus that drives my questions on the Art of Succession podcast has been to want to get into the weeds sometimes on that raw stuff that does make us to be better business owners on the other side. It is gut-wrenching as you are going through it. I would not wish it on anybody, except that I do wish it on you if you're a business owner, because I know that you're going to come out better on the other end, but it is going to be unbearable and to go through that.
I would definitely recommend starting off as an employee and working your way up. If we were to ever bring a partner into our business, that's how I would do it. I don't think I would ever put someone in as a partner right off the bat. And I don't care where they came from.
Guess who else gets to decide? I get to decide. And this is what we're deciding. And then when it became like that clear, like, I don't owe anybody anything. I owe myself and my family something. And I owe my employees something too, but I don't owe them all of me.
I really want to work myself out of a job to the extent that there's other stuff I should be and can be focusing on and kind of moving the needle in a different way. So it would have just been impossible without me kind of delegating all that work and looking for the most appropriate path to success.
Hopefully this has been beneficial to you, just to hear some of my thoughts behind running the show in season 1. I have favorite episodes, and I've listened to a couple of my own episodes and laughed, even though I was there in the moment. They still just bring joy to me to hear us have those conversations. And so I've really enjoyed recapping season 1 with you and letting you know just a little bit more behind the scenes about where the Art of Succession came from. Now I want to shift focus to season 2. So like I said, my goal was to set up seasons. Originally, my goal was if I couldn't book enough guests for the season 2, which would start during tax season, I would take a break and I would resume in the spring with season 2. As of right now, I think I'm going to have enough guests to get me through tax season without having to record. I am looking for guests, so if you know someone who should be featured on this show, I would love to interview them. Please go ahead and just pass along the information. I'm going to put the booking link down in the description below. It's there every episode, but you can find that if you have anybody that would make a great guest on the show. I'd love to get into their story. But because of that, I'm going to continue. Season 2 is going to pick up right where we leave off here with season 1, episode 12. Season 2 will come out the first Tuesday of January. I'm really excited about season 2's first episode. I've got a treat to share with you. I'm actually going to be interviewing my partner, Samantha Bowling. She's the managing partner here at GW CPAs. She started in this firm 32 years ago. She became managing partner last year. She's got a great story that I can't wait for you to hear. She's an amazing CPA. She's an amazing business owner. I am so happy to work with her. I was happy to work for her for a couple of years there before becoming partner here as well. And I'm just excited to share her story. When I shared my idea for this podcast back last March with her, she said, I want to be a guest on the show. And I said, absolutely. That will be such a treat for the listeners. So I started season 1 with one of my very good friends and a mentor of mine, Jason Blummer, and I'm going to be launching season 2 with a very good friend of mine and a mentor, Samantha Bowling. So look forward to that episode next month. Some of the changes I'm going to make for season 2. So YouTube is different for podcasts. Audio podcasts, it's nothing to listen to a 40-minute, hour-long podcast audio. YouTube is a little bit different. And so there's retention graphs in YouTube. There's a lot of information in YouTube. And I know that a lot of our guests don't have time to sit and watch a video for an hour nonstop. Not everybody subscribes to YouTube Premium, though you should. One of the best subscriptions I have. Cuts out all the ads and allows you to listen while the screen is off and in your pocket. Not everyone does that. And so I'm going to be making a change for season 2. I'm talking with my video editors about this. We're actually going to split season 2 into 2 episodes. We're going to have a part 1 release on Tuesday, and we're going to have part 2 release on Thursday morning. So every guest is going to be split into 2 episodes. I'm also cautious and wary of the time that our episodes have been getting up there over an hour. And so my editor is also going to be focusing on bringing the time down and really just trying to keep the most important information in those episodes for you guys to make sure that you're getting the best value for the interviews. Audio podcast will still be released 100% in full on Tuesday mornings, and so you can listen to that on Spotify or Apple Podcast or anywhere where you get your podcasts. But on YouTube, we're going to have part 1 released on Tuesday mornings, and we're going to release part 2 on Thursdays. If you come to the episode afterwards, you'll just be able to find that in the end screen of part 1. You'll be able to get to part 2 of that episode. So if you're not somebody who listens on the first day, hopefully it won't be that big of a difference for you. But I think that that's going to help bring new people into the audience, and it's something I'm experimenting with. There's a lot of experimentation that happens in business, and a lot of it is based off incomplete information, incomplete feedback. But as I watch YouTube, I know that 20 minutes for an episode is a pretty decent commitment. I've certainly listened to 45-minute episodes. I have listened to a couple 2-hour episodes, but I also have the ability to pause, pick up in my car, listen through my car radio, get home, press play when I'm doing the dishes, press play when I'm cooking, and it's a little bit more seamless there. And I know that not everybody has that workflow. So that's one of the changes we're making for season 2.
Truly, it was that messy, and I do think that has worked historically in my favor, that people very much see a human element, and it's not so methodical and tailored and perfect in the way that you come to market. It's just like, hey, we really want to do a good job.
There came a point where I started to see people who commit to things long term and they don't give up no matter what. They're the ones who end up being on top in 30 years, in 40 years. Like when the books of the people I'm reading, it's like, these people have been doing it for 40 and 50 years. I'm like, that's the people I'm looking up to. And so longevity started to become, for me, that's what I want to do. If I can help people now, I can really help them 20 years from now.
The success that we experience as business owners or entrepreneurs came with likely a lot of scars. And I think if somebody's telling you that they don't have those scars or they didn't have any, hard times or challenges, I'm going to be bold enough to say they're lying.
And we say that, I wholeheartedly believe this from the bottom of my heart. Everyone has a story to tell, and everyone should tell their story.
We talked a lot about a lot of good things, but I will say, never say never. And pay attention to those little details, because you never know what's going to happen. I had a plan and it was flipped in 24 hours. So
One of the other things that I did is the lightning round at the end of every episode. I enjoy the lightning round. It does open up some cans of worms that I probably would want to explore a little more. And so I'm going to be playing around with the layout and the positioning of the lightning round in the episodes in future seasons. But I appreciate knowing this information about my guests, getting to see what drives them. And yeah, I enjoy them. And so in the spirit of that, I've hinted at this a couple times on other episodes. I'm going to be doing the lightning round here so that you know what my own preferences are. And so here we go. Lightning round for the host, Barrett Young of the Artist Succession Podcast. Coffee or tea, and how do I like it? I drink coffee. I do like creamer in my coffee, usually 3 little cups of creamer, 3 pumps of creamer from the coffee. I do at home freshly grind my beans about once a week and put them in a jar. Here at the office, we drink Keurig. I definitely prefer the semi-freshly ground coffee at home. And I have a stovetop percolator that I really like at home as well. Pie or cake? Pie overall, my favorite pie is pecan pie. But coconut cake is what I request at my birthday. Me and my father-in-law both eat coconut cake and a tall glass of cold milk. He puts ice in his milk. I do not, but that's my go-to, and I really like coconut cake and pecan pie for that matter. I really like coconut cake because I don't have to share with my family. It's a unique cake that a lot of people don't like, and so I get more of it for myself. What is a common belief among entrepreneurs that you would want to challenge? I've been thinking about this one for the past year. This is actually the impetus behind the Art of Succession. This is kind of what drives me in the YouTube videos. And this is counter to who I was at 28 years old when I started my first company. The belief I would challenge among entrepreneurs is that you have to start it in order to be an entrepreneur. You have to start the business in order for it to be your business. The thesis I'm working off of in the back of my head is I actually feel that most people will probably be better served buying an existing business rather than starting one from scratch. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that, and I'll cover those in YouTube videos, but that's the belief that I want to challenge in the minds of entrepreneurs. What is my favorite holiday and why? So Thanksgiving, which just passed. I do love Thanksgiving. I love food. I love smoking turkeys. This year we did chickens. I love being with family. I love Thanksgiving because it's the kickoff for me of the Christmas season. So I do not separate Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's all part of the Christmas season, with Thanksgiving being the kickoff for that. And I love me a dog show. Go Pugs! They won this year at the Philadelphia Dog Show. So that's my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving. Am I a morning person or a night person? And do I have a favorite routine? I want to be a night person, but I cannot stay awake if I sit down late at night. My kids laugh at me. I think 9:10. I was asleep by 9:10 last night. Couldn't even make it through a 3-minute YouTube video. So I'm a morning person. I'm awake whether I like it or not, usually by about 5. Try to get out of bed right when I wake up. I fail more days than not. I do like to train in the mornings. If I am training for anything, I like to get it out of the way. If I train at night, it usually just revs up my heart rate and I'm not able to sleep. So I really like training in the morning. But I love a cup of coffee and I love to read. That's kind of my morning routine. What is one thing that you want your successor to remember you for? I did not have good examples. I did not have inspiring examples in this profession when I first became an accountant. My first partners that I worked for, I asked one of them if I should become a CPA, and he said it doesn't really matter to us. I would want my successor to remember me for encouraging them with all the joy that there is in this profession, with the feeling of it being worth it. I don't know how to word that better. Being a business owner is worth it. It is one of the most heart-wrenching things you'll do. The work that you put in is what makes it worth it. It's not in spite of the work that you put in. And so that's what I'd want my successor to remember me for. They're in this profession because I encouraged them in this profession, because I told them that I showed them how they could do it, how they were empowered to stick with this profession and to become a business owner. That's what I want them to remember me for. Where are you finding creativity right now? YouTube. I probably watch YouTube more than any other streaming service. I'm always looking for something else to learn, something to grow in. YouTube has been my big obsession for 2024. I'm starting to finally move away from that because it does just get overwhelming. And so I'm watching a lot of YouTubers right now on advisory services and especially pricing and different things like that. Just trying to work on knowledge building for that. So that's where I'd say I'm finding creativity. What do I have coming up in the next year that's got me really excited? Oh boy. Season 2 of the podcast. I'm excited to see how that launches and see the reception, just making improvements in the podcast. Hopefully those improvements are noticed and received and appreciated. We've got a lot of changes in the firm coming this next year. One of the big ones is I've fully moved into the role of tax partner here at the firm, and that means that every tax return is coming through me rather than Sam, and that's a big responsibility and a big change, and I'm excited to step into that role. It's also my 20th anniversary next year, so I'm hoping to take my wife to Ireland. That's the goal, and so I'm really excited about that. And where can people find me? You can find me right here on the Art of Succession podcast. Thank you for entertaining this season 1 finale. I had a lot of stuff to talk about and share with you about what this podcast has meant to me so far. Hopefully you found value from this. You can also check out the YouTube channel where I do long-form talking head videos mostly about succession planning, and hopefully that is added benefit to you along this journey. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to season 1 of the Art of Succession podcast. We've had some great guests. I hope that you find a favorite and share it with a friend, and just bring them into this audience. And I hope that it has grown you, whether or not you're buying a business or not. It has grown you in your profession, in your appreciation for small business. And I will see you in season 2.